Hey guys, what's up? Thank you for joining in on this little live Q&A this evening. I know this is something somewhat different than what I usually do. I usually try to cook something for you all and post the video, and I promise you there's going to be quite a bit more of that in the future. But I've been noticing in the comment section of my videos lately that a lot of you folks have been asking a lot of different questions, and it seems that there's 8 or 10 things that a lot of you ask from time to time, and I promise I'm going to get to going through those comments and replying to all of those as I can. I apologize if it takes a little while, but I will try to get to each of them, and I want y'all to know I really appreciate you watching, really appreciate you leaving comments and liking the videos. Um, but I went through and found a few of what seemed like to be common questions that a lot of you are asking, and I thought this evening I would try to go through and answer a few of those. And if I don't know if it's going to show up, I've got my laptop in front of me here as well. And if you ask a question, if you type something in here and I were to not see it during this live stream, I will go through those after I get done with the video, and I will reply to each of those. So if I miss you during this, I apologize, but I will get to you. But it seems like one of the first questions that I've come through that I read, it's very common as I read through a lot of the different videos, is a lot of you ask about adjusting the vents or the dampers on the Weber kettle that I use. And I know a lot of you all use a Kettle grill just like I do, Weber. And you know there's 2 vents on there. There's a damper on the bottom, then there's a smaller one on the top of the lid. And I know if you're new to using it, that can be a little confusing to you. So I'll go ahead and start with when I'm grilling. You know, when you want the temperature to be really hot, if you're going to grill a steak or some burgers or maybe some chicken breast, you want to leave both of those open. You want to leave the bottom one fully open and the top one, and that will allow a lot of airflow into the grill, and that's what causes the temperature to get hotter, is having more airflow into it. So you definitely want to leave the bottom one open and the top one open. Now, when you get into doing low and slow and you're doing barbecue and you want to get a temperature down a little bit lower, around 225 degrees, 250 degrees, I will start most of the time with the bottom one and the top one open about a quarter, about 1/4 of the way. You can always open it up a little bit and adjust up from that. But a good place to start is usually the bottom vent and the top vent about 1/4 of the way. But now I'm going to throw some different scenarios in here. There's going to be a lot of factors that will come into play when it comes into the temperature inside your grill, whether it's hot outside or cold. You know, if you're like me, I like to cook all year long. Some folks maybe usually just grill in the summer, and there's some of us that will get out in the snow and, you know, light a fire and try to cook something. So when you get out and say the temperature outside's in the 30s or in the 20s, you know, it's going to be a little different than in the middle of the summer. So you got to expect things like that. So you may have to open it up a little bit, as opposed to maybe a time when it's raining, maybe moisture in the air and humidity outside. Um, all those things will come into play when it comes to keeping your temperature regulated. How much charcoal and you know what type of charcoal, and I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. But a good place to start, a good rule of thumb, is to start about 1/4 of the way open on top and bottom, and then the bottom one you want to use it for, I guess, for bigger temperature changes. If you just need to go up or down maybe 4 or 5 degrees or something, you can start with the actual top with the top vent. If you open it up a little bit and you're just not coming up enough, then that's when the bottom one maybe open it up to about 1/3 or go up to 1/2. So I hope that's helped you with those vents, the top one and the bottom one. Just think of those as, you know, what's letting the airflow into the grill, and like I said, you know, the bottom one, when you open it up, it's going to cause a bigger fluctuation in the temperature than the top one. The top one will be for smaller adjustments. And that gets into the second question. That is cooking time and temperature. And on a lot of the different videos, a lot of folks have asked, you know, if I would try to explain more when we get into the actual cook, how long that I cooked it, what temperature that I used, and all that kind of stuff. And that varies from cook to cook. Um, we'll start like with ribs. And a lot of people will ask, how long do I need to cook a rack of ribs, or how long do I need to cook a chicken? Well, a good rule of thumb, I guess you could say, is to start with estimate about an hour per pound on a lot of the food, but that's not always going to work out that way. I've seen times when you cook a pork butt, and it maybe is 6 pounds, and in 5 or 6 hours it's done. I've seen them go a lot over that. Sometimes I've seen them cook a little quicker. But it's good to allow yourself plenty of time, because when you're doing when you're doing barbecue, I see you in the chat there. I've got a laptop set up in front of me, and I'm trying to read on the phone as well. So I might try to get to some of your questions here in just a few minutes. But it's going to vary from from cook to cook. But you always need to allow yourself at least maybe an hour per pound for the meat. And I was saying, when it comes to barbecue and it comes to grilling, patience is it's key. A lot of the things that we do, you can't rush. To get a good cook, you've got to really take your time, and if you rush the food, you're going to see that it don't come out as good a lot of the time. So allow at least an hour per pound, maybe more than that, and even on top of how long that you cook, you need to let it rest for a while. So I hope that that's helped you. On ribs, I usually allow myself 5 hours, 6 hours, and that seems to be an average for me. Sometimes I cook them a little slower than that, but keeping the temperature around 225 or 250, usually in about 5 hours or so. And as far as the temperature goes, like on ribs, I don't really look for a specific temperature. You want to look for the tenderness in the meat. You can take a toothpick, or you can take a probe like a thermometer, and you can use the probe to to gauge how tender that it is. You want it to feel like going into butter. That's about what you're looking for. But usually, before it gets that way, the temperature is going to be 195, 200, maybe 203 or 204. That is probably a good place to look for if you want to go by temperature. But a lot of it's going to be by feel when it comes to pork butts, and when it comes to a brisket, or when it comes to these ribs. Now, when you get to chicken or poultry, you do want to more go by temperature. I say that about the propane grill. Occasionally, I don't own one, but my father-in-law does. Sometimes at his house I use one, but most of the time I'm a charcoal man. It takes a little longer, but I just like the flavor that you get from it. But poultry, you want to cook the breast to about 165 degrees. If you start getting a lot past that, you're going to risk drying out the meat. The dark meat can go a little higher, 170, 180. That's no problem on it. But if you let a breast get much past that, you're going to start losing it's going to start getting really dry on you. So you want to avoid that if at all possible. But every cook will be different. But I can't instill into you enough patience. It's going to take patience on any kind of barbecue to get a good cook. The third question that I come to a lot was wrap. I did a real video back maybe a year or 2 years ago. It was last summer maybe, or the summer before last, and I put it up, and ribs were looking pretty good, and then I wrapped them, and a lot of you all commented about how that the bark, once I wrapped the ribs, it kind of messed up the bark. And unfortunately, sometimes that's what happens. And everybody has to do this different. And you will find, after you practice and do it a few different ways, you'll find the way that you prefer to do it. But on my ribs, I don't wrap them anymore. I might occasionally, but most of the time, I don't wrap my ribs anymore. And I know that's a big debate with a lot of people, whether to wrap them or whether not to wrap them. Once you wrap them in aluminum foil, or if you wrap them in butcher paper, they sort of braise in the juices, and you can add some juices of some type, some kind of a broth or stock, or a lot of folks will use different things, but you can do that, and they will braise. And if you like them to the point to where they're going to fall off the bone, you might like to wrap them. But for the most part, I prefer mine to have a little bit of bite to them. And I have just got to the point where I usually just cook mine straight through without wrapping. Once they get to that tenderness, when I probe them with my thermometer or toothpick, or sometimes I'll do what people call the bend test. You might see that in one of my rib videos. Once they get to that point to where they're tender enough, I a lot of times will just sauce them and let them set up with that sauce a little bit, and then I pull them off. But I don't wrap them. Pork butts, and you have to try it. There is times when I do wrap my pork butts, but with them, like I said, with the ribs, most of the time I don't use a wrap on them. Um, but you have to try it each way, and you'll have to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. That's when it comes to grilling, when it comes to barbecue. Um, a lot of folks will do it different ways. You have to try, I guess, and just learn. There's trial and error, and you'll figure out what works for you. Know anything about smoking venison roast? I have never smoked any deer meat. I do love deer meat. I love backstrap. I've cooked it a lot of different ways. I've roasted it in the oven, and I love to bread the backstrap and fry it. But I have never smoked it. But if I can get some backstrap or maybe any kind of deer meat this winter, I plan on trying to smoke some of it, and hopefully that'll be a video. Hopefully that would be a video. I want to get to the next question here. How much charcoal and what type? Um, a lot of folks, when you're beginning to grill and to use a Weber, a Kettle, or the barbecue, there's lump charcoal and then briquettes, and a lot of folks don't know which one to use, and they wonder what the difference is. And you might see me using both of them. If you watch a lot of my videos, you'll probably see a little bit of each. But if I picked one that I use more than anything, it's probably going to be lump charcoal. I love lump charcoal. And what brand do I use? I use Royal Oak. I like it pretty good, and I know, with the brands of charcoal, that there's a lot of different folks like different brands, but it's something that each region you're probably going to find different brands. And Kingsford and Royal Oak are in the area that I live here in Kentucky. They're the most popular in the store. If you buy it in the store. So I go with Royal Oak a whole lot, and I like it. I get pretty good use out of it. If you're starting to grill, briquettes might be a little easier for you. I started out using briquettes, and then I gradually started using the lump, and I've got to, like I said, where I like it. I use a chimney to start my charcoal a lot of the times. I actually got it sitting here. I'll put a few of my accessories that I use out here. A lot of folks ask about this. Is it necessary, or do you have to have it? You don't have to have it. You can light charcoal a couple different ways. I would say probably best to stay away from lighter fluid if possible. I don't ever use it. I know a lot of folks will use it, and they say you can let it burn off, but a lot of times when other people have cooked with it, you eat a burger or you eat something and it tastes just like lighter fluid. It just puts too much flavor into the food for me, so I don't ever use it. But the easiest thing to use to me is one of these chimneys. Just the way that it's designed, it allows the air to flow, and you'll light either newspaper, or I like to use, you can use the wax cubes that they make, or I buy these little tumbleweeds. These light really easy. You can just use one, and you need to allow probably, I know the bag a lot of times says 15 minutes or 20 minutes. You need to allow at least 20 minutes on your charcoal. You want it to all be lit, and if it's the briquettes, they turn sort of gray, and the lump, you'll see it gets it's kind of amber colored. Once it gets lit, you want it to all be lit before you dump that into the grill if you want it to be hot. That's the way you'll get the hottest temperature. When you're first starting out, I know sometimes you're anxious to get the meat on the grill, but if you do that, if you don't give it time, you're not going to get the temperature that you would get if you would have waited. Again, patience is, it's a virtue, and it's definitely something needed in grilling and barbecue. For most cooks, a lot of people ask me, how much charcoal do you use starting out? I fill that chimney all the way full, most cooks, and that will cook, if you're going to do burgers, going to do steaks or pork chops, anything that's just a routine cook, as I call it, one chimney full will get you through the cook. you're probably going to get 30, 45 minutes at least of good hot temperature. You can cook, you like to sear things and then move it over and cook it indirectly. You're going to get 45 minutes or an hour. It might not be as hot after about 45 minutes, but you're still going to get enough temperature to cook the meat all the way through. Now, when it comes to smoking, a lot of times if I'm going to do like a pork butt or something that's going to take a few hours, I will fill a whole chimney full at least. And I use lump a lot of times, but you can do it with briquettes or with lump. I have found that a whole chimney full of unlit charcoal, and then I'll tell you how many that I usually light for each temperature here in just a moment. But I have found that a whole chimney full will get you through hours and hours. I've cooked stuff for 8 or 9 hours probably. There is times that I do have to go back and add a little, but for most cooks, I cook ribs and pork butts, it seems more than anything. With most of those, one chimney is more than enough to get you through. And as far as how much that I actually light, if you're going to use briquettes, again, for beginners, it might be a little bit easier. You can count them out that way. Probably 7 or 8. A lot of times will get you started about 225 if you want to stay low, around 225 to 250 degrees. I wouldn't light probably more than 10 or 12. If you start lighting more than that, the temp will get up on you, and once it gets up there, sometimes it's a little hard to back it back down. If I'm using lump, like I said, I'll pour a whole chimney full of unlit charcoal in. I'll fill this up about 1/4 of the way probably, and light that and pour on it. And that usually is enough to get started. You can always open the vents up and allow more airflow in, and that way that the temp will come up a little bit. But again, try some of this stuff. Through trial and error, you'll figure it out. So just try a few things and you'll see what works best for you. But I recommend either Kingsford or Royal Oak. Like I said, that's what's readily available for me. Both of those are good charcoals. I would recommend them. And you can find stuff on sale sometimes. You can find even value brands. Try it. There's nothing wrong with trying it. If you don't like it, you just give a few bucks for it, not to buy it again. The next question, a lot of times I use, and a lot of you have asked, you've said, well, I've seen you use a water pan in some videos you don't use a water pan. What's the difference, or why are you not using it? A water pan, and this is a thing that a lot of people maybe have different opinions on, but especially if you're using a kettle type grill and you put the water pan under where the food's going to be cooking, it kind of helps diffuse the heat a little bit, helps you when you're cooking indirectly. I know like in an offset smoker or something, it's not that important, but in the kettle types like the Weber Smoky Mountain, some of you might use, or just a regular 22-inch kettle, using a water pan is good. You can just fill it with a little bit of water, and it kind of helps regulate the temperature and helps things to be more even. I know some folks will say that it also maybe keeps a little moisture in there. And then I know some people will put apple juice or fruit juices or different things in it. I've done that before, and honestly, I've not seen much of a difference. I've heard before that if you put apple juice, maybe it imparts a little flavor. I've not noticed a huge difference. I'm not saying it doesn't give it any flavor, but if I use a water pan, most of the time I just put water in it. The reason most of the time, if you see me not using one, a lot of the videos I do, I try to keep things very simple, and sometimes I may not even have an extra pan to use or something, and just for the simplicity of it, sometimes I just throw the meat on there and cook it. Using a water pan, it's one of those things where if you take the extra steps, sometimes you do come out with a better end product. So if I've got an extra pan, a lot of times I will use one, but if you see me throwing something on there and not using one, it's probably just because I didn't have one and it was time for me to cook, or I was ready to make the video and I didn't have time to run to the store and pick one up. So, and like I said, maybe just simplicity. I just wanted to keep it as simple as possible. But it's definitely not a bad idea to put one in there. It's not something you absolutely have to have, but it definitely would help if you put one in there with just a little water in it. Next question. A lot of folks ask about the 2 little thermometers that are on the lid of my grill, and kind of wanted to get into the modifications on my grill, which are few, not many at all. The grill that I bought, I didn't buy the premium one. I can't remember exactly what it's called now, but there's one that you can buy that's actually already got a thermometer built into the top. And I didn't buy that one. I bought the cheaper one. I think it was like $100 or $99 when I bought it. So I decided to put a couple little thermometers in the top of it. And you know, when you pick these little thermometers up, some people will debate the accuracy of them. The best thing to do, you can look on Amazon and look at the reviews on them. They're not expensive, but sometimes you'll find some that have better reviews than others. I'll try to go back and edit the description of this video after it's done, and if I can go back and find the one that I bought, I will put a link to it. It seems to be pretty accurate, and I actually put two. I put one on each side, that way I can kind of see what the temperature is directly above the coals, and I put one on the opposite side, that way I can kind of monitor the temperature on the side where I'm indirectly cooking the meat. And I know those are not 100% accurate, and I know that they're up off of the grate just a little bit, but it's better than not having anything. And like I said, I find that it gets me pretty close. There's also a lot of options out there that you can buy, little thermometers that you can actually, there's a probe that will go into the meat, and there's one that actually you will put into the grate, and it will monitor the temperature right down on the grate level next to the meat. Those are probably better. That's probably a better option. I don't actually own one, but I'm planning on investing in one of those soon. And speaking of that, the thermometer that I use, since I'm talking about accessories, I do use a Thermopin MK4. This is a pretty expensive thermometer. I have picked some up at Walmart before for maybe less than $20. Those get the job done. This thermometer is very accurate, and chefs use this. A lot of professionals use it, and I just, you know, as far as any accessory goes, there's always something that will get the job done. There's always something maybe a little more expensive, a little nicer, and I know everybody, you know, sometimes you can't afford the nicer one, and I too. A lot of times I buy the cheaper thing if it works. I do recommend the MK4 if you want to put out the extra money, but if you can't afford one of those, don't think you have to spend a lot of money to get into grilling and barbecue. You don't. You absolutely don't, folks. You can just pick up a grill, and if you need a thermometer, you can pick up a cheap one at Walmart. They'll get the job done, or on Amazon, or just anywhere that you like to order things from. But don't think that you have to run out and spend a fortune or spend a whole lot of money. There's, like I said, there are products that are maybe nicer or better if you can afford those, but you absolutely don't have to have them. You can get away with a lot cheaper and a lot less stuff, really, and it's just as fun, and you can turn out just as good barbecue. Also, another modification I did to the grill when I first bought it, and it's a simple one. I got on Amazon and I ordered the grate that's got the little, the ends of it flips up so that you can put charcoal in it without having to take the whole grate off. That has proved to be pretty handy. Most of the time, like I said, I don't have to add, but when I do add charcoal, I just flip that up, and that makes it a little bit easier. So that's just a little extra thing, and I'll maybe try to link to those products on the description of this. And there's a lot of other videos. There are other options for you know, modifications to a Weber kettle, and I'm thinking about kind of getting into some of those. It might be a future video. If there's anything that you'd like to see me do, go ahead and leave me a comment and below, and I'll check it out. And if you guys have got ideas for future videos that you'd like to see, I do read those. I will maybe try to get around to some of those in time. Hey Ryan, love your channel. Have you ever tried a brisket in the Weber? I have never cooked a brisket in that Weber that you all see me using, and that, I promise, that's going to be a video soon. That's going to be a video soon. I really love brisket, and it's one of my favorite things to eat. I've never cooked one on that Weber kettle, but you will see one soon. I'll try to make a point to make that a video here pretty soon, maybe one of my next ones. Next question that a lot of folks ask about is spritzing the meat. A lot of times somebody had asked in a comment what did I actually use, and I use, a lot of times I'll do 1/3 water, 1/3 apple cider vinegar, and 1/3 apple juice. And I do spritz sometimes, especially if it's a pork butt, sometimes even ribs. I do spritz. That is something that I have found that it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make a huge difference. And I know some of you might debate that or might disagree, but in my cooks that I have done, it doesn't make a huge difference, and that's why you don't see me do it in all of my videos. Again, it's something kind of like what I said about the water pan. Sometimes you put more work into it, you will get a better end product. There might be a little, little difference, might be a little bit better. So, and a lot of people, they will do it in every cook. And like I said, it's, everybody has to do it their own way, but I have not found a huge difference in the end product. So that's why you don't always see me do it. Sometimes I just, out of simplicity, just want to throw it on there and just get it done as quick as possible, and not include any extra steps that we don't have to do. Somebody had asked on on my rib video, the last one I done, about cooking multiple racks of ribs on the grill. Now, my wife picked up this rib rack for me a year or two back, and I've used it a few times. So with a Weber kettle, one of the bad things about it is you are sort of limited to cooking space, because you have to build the fire on one side and you've only got a little room on the other side if you're going to cook indirectly. So you are sort of limited on that. Here is my take on this rib rack. I actually cooked, I think, 3 racks of spare ribs a couple weekends ago for my brother-in-law's birthday. And what I actually did was cut those in half. And I think this one will hold 5, but I actually just leaned one up against it. What happened on that cook, they came out, they tasted great, good flavor, they cooked good, but they just didn't get a really good bark like you would get if you just laid them out there on the grate. That was kind of a price that you have to pay for it, but they did taste good. But like I said, I was cooking it for my brother-in-law for his birthday, and we didn't really care what they looked like. They were more interested in how they tasted. So yes, you can cook multiple racks. I do recommend getting a rib rack and doing them the way that I said. That way that you don't risk the ribs actually being over top of the heat source, and that way you don't burn them. Another question that somebody had asked, or a few had asked, is about cleaning the grill. What do I use to clean the grate with? I used to use one of those wire brushes with the little wire bristles, but I have moved away from that because they are bad about the bristles coming off, and I don't want to risk that getting into the food and my family or friends or myself having to eat that. So I have moved away from using those. I do use this one. It's I think it's rolled steel. You don't have to worry about the bristles coming off or anything. If you don't have one of those, you can take a wooden spatula. They do a good job, especially if you've got an old one. You can use the same one and just use it for, exclusive for cleaning your grill. Those work really good. If you don't have one of those, take some aluminum foil and just roll it up into a ball and scrub the grate off with that. That works really good for me. So that's something I'll do from time to time. As far as actually cleaning inside the grill, I never really give it a real deep cleaning or anything, but what I do is I'll take some paper towels and just kind of dampen them a little bit before the cook, and I'll usually go around the inside, especially around the rim, and try to clean that before. Last question for me, I've tried your spatchcock chicken, and the skin seems leather in areas. Meat is perfect, but I want a crispier skin. Any tips? And then Leah, I was going to ask about brisket. Matthew beat me to it. Please, Ryan, cook up a brisket soon. It's my absolute favorite. It's one of my favorites too. As far as the chicken goes, I don't know what temp that you cooked it at, but I should have touched on this earlier when I was talking about cooking temps. For pork and or a brisket, try to stay around 225, maybe to 250. The lower the temperature and the longer you cook it, usually the better it comes out. Chicken, on the other hand, and this is what I have found in my experience, I like to raise the temp up a little bit, cook it a little bit faster, probably at least 275. Sometimes I'll go over 300, maybe 325. Sometimes the grill just gets up a little hot, 350 or something, and I can't get it cooled back down in time. But a lot of times when you get with your chicken, raise the temperature up a little bit and try that. That'll help to crisp up the skin just a little bit. So maybe that will help you. Hopefully that will help you. Maybe a little bit of a higher temperature. The spatchcock and the chicken, I did a video on that, I think maybe a couple of weeks ago. That was the first video that I'd done on that. I've cooked a couple chickens and even a turkey breast on there, but what I like about spatchcock and the chicken, lets it cook more evenly, and you know, the breast and the dark meat will start to get cooked fully through closer to the same time. If you cook a whole chicken, sometimes, you know, just because of the way that it's made, it don't really cook as even. And you know, if you're not careful, you will end up drying out the white meat, and the dark meat will, you know, finally get done, but the breast will be dried out. So if you've not tried that, check out that video that I did a couple weeks ago on spatchcocking a chicken. It's easy. All you got to do is cut the backbone out and just kind of flatten it out. That's a real good method to use, but try raising the temperature up just a little bit. Cook it a little bit hotter the next time and see if that helps. See if that helps. But guys, I covered about 10 questions or so there, and I think that those were some of the most commonly asked questions. And I promise, if you've left a comment on a video and I haven't replied to it, I've just had a lot of things going on lately with work and stuff, but I promise I'm going to get to those and try to reply to them and answer them. So I'll get to them as soon as possible. But if you're watching this video and you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell, that way you get notifications. And guys, if you would leave a comment or ask a question during this, I'm not able to see them currently right now for whatever reason. I'll go back after this video is over and I'll look through those, and I will try to answer each of your questions tonight. And I'll try to go back and fill in the description, leave some links and some information. But if you all like this video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments if you like this style video. Maybe I'll do another one soon or in the future. Let me know some of the types of videos that you want me to do, some things you'd like to see me cook. And also, if there's some rubs, I want to start trying some new rubs and barbecue sauces, some things that I've never tried. So let me know what your favorite rubs and barbecue sauces are in the comments, and I'll try some of those. But I hope you guys have a great weekend, and God bless you. I'll catch you in the next video.